Man, that is so sweet. First manicure in ages. You know, you could actually get a manicure if you were in Georgia this week and you maintain social distance. 1 sec. Good job, just a bit more. If you maintain the social distance of 6 feet, then it's absolutely okay. You may wonder, how can you maintain social distance of 6 feet and give a manicure? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. Isn't that right, Cor?
Sure is. 6 feet away at all times.
A manicure isn't the only thing that you can get. We'll talk about that in a second. Kevin Bieksa on today's Isolation Nation. 13 years in the NHL. Every season he was worried about his community. Great guy. Okay, now more things you can do in Georgia. I can get my hair cut. Hey, Court, you want to take just a little bit off the side? You want to clean that up for me? Yeah, I think that'll work. Also today on Isolation Nation, Caroline Szwed. She was a really promising young soccer player. Injuries meant that she had to end her career, but now she's a promising broadcaster. All right, Cor, massage time, because you can get one of those in Georgia as long as you maintain social distance. Oh, that's good, man. Like right here. Yeah, get in there. Good. Yeah, both sides. Perfect. Nails, hair, massage without breaking a single rule. Hey, what else do you need? If you get your nails done, you got your hair done, you got your massage, then you can continue. Hey, folks, Isolation Nation here. And yeah, we had a lot of fun shooting that. By the way, that was my son in the open. My daughter was shooting it. It's a family affair for us. You know, here's my belief about mental health is that it is obviously a very serious subject. I mean, who in a million years, I would never deny that. But I think you've got to mix in some humor. You got to get people to smile. You got to try to make the message a little bit more palatable and a little bit more enjoyable. So you got to be able to go from the serious to the not so serious back to the serious. And that's what we're going to try to do today. Caroline Szwed, I'm looking forward to finding out how well I pronounced her name. Kevin Bieksa. Sorry, I screwed that up. Szwed, how did I do?
Not bad for your first try. It's Szwed. So phonetically.
Hold on. I said Szwed.
But I think it's more like, if you were to spell it phonetically, it's Schfed. So Szwed.
Szwed.
That's perfect. I know,
okay.
It's tough. Polish.
Szwed. Right, Polish. And Kevin Bieksa, whose name I can pronounce, but there's a certain broadcaster who was on Hockey Night in Canada for a long time who I think really liked you, who never got your name right. Kevin Bieksa, how are you?
I'm doing good. My name seems so easy to pronounce now with the company I'm in, right?
Okay, well, let's hear you give it a try.
The Szweds are coming.
There you go. Right? That was really good.
No, it wasn't.
That was pretty good.
Oh,
no, it was a V, not an F. No,
she spelled it out for you. It's Szwed.
It was pretty good.
Nah,
that's what I heard.
All right, Szwed, you sit on the sidelines for a couple of moments. Let me talk to Kevin, and then we'll get back to you, and then we'll just keep talking. So, Kevin, how are you? How you doing? How you coping? I know you're in California, obviously. After you played with Anaheim, you guys stayed around there. But like everybody else, you're staying in your house. What's that been like?
It's been good. You know, I've got a couple things on the go. Like I haven't shaved once since the quarantine. If you can see my haircut, looking for some laughter, and cut my own hair.
You cut your own hair?
I want to say that my daughter did it, but she didn't. I did it. I did that myself. I look at myself in the mirror and I've been putting like lightning bolts in there and I've been doing all these funny things. I haven't had a sip of alcohol in 40 days. Not that I'm a big drinker anyways, but I'm just looking for every little challenge I can. I ran a half marathon last week. I do a puzzle every couple of days with my daughter. I'm just looking for little challenges to pass the day.
How did you run a half marathon? Wouldn't that be I mean, I guess people were spaced out enough that it wasn't a factor. I wouldn't have thought that there was a half marathon going on.
Yeah, let me rephrase, self half marathon. So
so there's no witnesses to your half marathon, is what you're saying.
There's the Nike app. The Nike app is my witness. But I watched, obviously, like everybody else watching Netflix and documentaries, I watched the Iron Cowboy, where this man ran 50 triathlons in 50 days in 50 different states. So that inspired me to go out and run a half marathon. And one day I just woke up like half marathon, went and did it.
So how are you doing with the fear of the illness, with the imposition on all of our lives that, outside of well, you found a way to get outside, but are you anxious about this? Are you anxious about your family? Is your family anxious about this?
Yeah, so I'm not so anxious. My wife very anxious, and then my 10-year-old daughter, who I mentioned, is very anxious, to the point where we obviously, we live in California. The weather's been good. We get outside every day. We go for walks, bike rides, scooters, all of that stuff. But my daughter, when she comes home, will wipe down her entire bike with her sanitary wipes, even if she hasn't been 50 feet within a person. So she's really struggled with this more than anyone. My son, who's turning 13. I mean, he's such a homebody. Other than not being on the ice right now, this is ideal for him. He gets to sleep in. He gets to sit around, watch movies. He trains every day. He's already on a charter school program online, so he's been doing that. But it's been more challenging, I'd say, for my wife and my daughter.
And before COVID-19, your wife and daughter also experienced anxiety, right? It's not just from this pandemic.
No, my wife's been battling it since I met her. It's been a while. I don't want to age her or myself, but she's been battling it her whole life. My daughter, for whatever reason, she's always kind of had it to some degree as well. And as she gets older, we're starting to really see it more and more, right? So something got to kind of, be cautious of and make sure that we're an ear to listen to her. And she has these fears and she has this anxiety, and we have to deal with it.
Yeah, let me take a guess that because the same scenario existed in my house, exactly the same. I suffered from anxiety as a kid. I never got rid of it. I never told a soul. Like, your daughter's 10 years old and you know that she has anxiety. When my son was 6, 7 years old, we knew he had anxiety. When I was 10 years old, God, I would never have told anybody about it. And maybe that's why I'm driven to never shut up about it now. But my son, because he had the same thing as me, I could understand him in a way that my wife couldn't understand him. Like, I was the one who was able, because my own experience, not because I'm more sensitive, but I could talk him down from the ledge. And it was much more difficult for Karen to do so because I understood the nature of his anxiety. Is it like that with you guys?
Yeah, so like you said, my wife is been suffering. So she's great with my daughter, right? She's able to talk her off the ledge. But you said to me, how many? I don't know. It could have been 15 years ago. If you don't suffer from depression, anxiety, don't pretend you know how it feels. So for me, I'm in that situation where I can't pretend I know exactly how she feels. So I'm more or less just an ear, right? There's only so much I can do. But my wife, who's actively suffering through the same things, they're really able to relate to each other, and they got a really special bond. But for me, I'm not going to be the person who's saying, well, this is what you should do, this is how you fix it, because I don't really know. So I'm more or less a support mechanism, right?
That's such a I was going to say it's such a great point, but since I told it to you, it sound like I'm boasting about it. But one of the things that I say all the time to people in the context of this, I say, you are a caregiver. And when I speak to crowds, let's say there's 500 people in the audience, I'll say, how many people here suffered from depression or anxiety? And I don't, like, 500 people are there, probably 20 or 25 will put up their hands. And there's probably another 20, 25 that didn't want to put up their hands. And that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking there. And then I'll say, how many of you have or do care about someone with a mental illness like anxiety or depression? And out of 500 people, 498 will put up their hands. It's touched all of us. But unlike any other illness, Kevin, no one would ever say to someone who was going through chemotherapy, I understand what you're going through. If they hadn't been through it, it would be absurd to say that, right? But we say that all the time, it seems, with mental illness.
Yeah, I think more, we just don't know what to say, right? When you're trying to help somebody you love, and yeah, you're right, you don't understand how it feels, but you're just trying to say whatever you can to help them. So it's a tough situation. It's something that I've got a little bit of experience with dealing with Rick Rippin. But again, I'm not an expert. And when I go and I've spoken to youth summits and schools, the first thing I say is, I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you exactly what's happening with individuals and the chemical reactions in their brains. All I know is, I'm a person and I'm trying to help, and all I can do is support you.
But that's the healthiest thing you can say to somebody with an illness, whether it's your wife with anxiety, whether it's me with depression, because nothing pisses somebody off like the two of us, your wife and I and Caroline, more than someone acting like they know what it's like and then offering advice based on their healthy brain. I call it healthy brainitis. It's like you think that, oh, Landsberg's got depression, so he must be sad, or Landsberg's got depression, he must be dissatisfied with his life. So I'm going to tell him to do certain things, like I'm going to tell him to suck it up, or I'm going to tell him appreciate the blessings in your life. And that is really annoying. And that can put a barrier between a husband and a wife, between a father and a daughter. It's really important that people understand what you understand.
Yeah. So like I try my coping mechanisms, I try to make her laugh, right? And like you said, I don't know what it's like to suffer from depression, anxiety, but I know what it is to suffer from a bad haircut, from no teeth, from not having any teeth. Like I know I have a lot of my own problems going on, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, you mentioned at the start of the show, I mean, laughter makes everything a little bit better, right? It's making light of things, not making light of them in the sense of being insensitive, but just making things a little bit lighter. Right. So I try to keep things light. That's kind of my job in life for everybody, I guess.
Me too. I kind of look at myself exactly the same way, but I'll mention this to Caroline because she could probably relate to it more than you can, because as you've said, you don't suffer from this illness. But for me, the first thing that goes is my ability to be spontaneous, my ability to be me. And the loss of who you are is one of the most painful things that you can experience. It's like, for me, that's what depression is. It's the loss of me. I get replaced by someone who I don't like, and yet I can't do anything about that person replacing me. And let's talk about, your buddy, Rick. Rick Rippin died in 2011, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's been, I can't believe it's been that long.
And he died in the same summer that Wade Belak died, who was one of my buddies. And you know that Wade, I'm at my kitchen table now, and Wade sat here and he said, I don't understand Rick. I don't understand how he could do it. I don't understand how he, could just, give up. I don't understand how he could leave his family. I could never do that. Can you imagine? Like he said that, and then I don't know. It was probably less than a month later that he died.
Yeah, but and Rick and I, this is a longer story than this show, but I was with Rick through the beginning of this to the end, and when it was just him and I, and he had one episode where he overdosed on his anxiety medication, and he was in the hospital, and he was a little bit delirious, and it was just him and I in the emergency room. And I said to him, I go, were you really trying to take your life? And he looked at me, he goes, no, like I would never, I made a mistake with my medication. He goes, I go, yeah, but would you ever, are you at the point where you're thinking about it? He goes, I would never do it. He goes, come on, I would actually never do it. Like I'm depressed, but I would never do it. So I think he really believed himself. I think at that point of his life, I think the day that he took his own life was a really dark day for him. He was at his place that's in the middle of the woods in southern Alberta. He tried to make a couple phone calls to Craig Heisinger, myself, couldn't get a hold of anyone. He was in a dark time. He had a couple drinks. He's sitting around the fire, and things escalated. So for the majority of his time, I don't think he thought he was suicidal, but everything, it was like the perfect storm of emotions and everything. And that's what I think happened that last day.
I as I often say, I have a saying for everything, like little portable things that, especially if you go to speak to people, can take away. And one of them is that suicide makes no sense until it does. You can't imagine, you can't possibly conceive of the idea, because we all have this survival instinct. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, Michael, you got these really swollen glands. I don't like the way that feels. And we're going to take a biopsy. And when you're waiting for the biopsy to come back, all you can think about is, God, no, I don't want to have cancer. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And that is so strong inside of us that when someone actually actively brings death upon them, we can't, for the life of us, understand it.
I think about that day for him, and I just can't imagine the feeling and how sad and how confused he was in that moment. He was just an amazing guy. Like he was so mentally tough. If you want to use that word, he was so mentally tough think about like all the things he had to overcome to get to where he was. He was such a tough, strong individual. And I just can't imagine how alone he must have felt at that time.
You know, one of the things, like I've never contemplated suicide, but I understand suicide. And for me, okay, say it nice and loud. What story am I telling?
Grey Cup.
Grey Cup.
2008.
Which hotel room?
Marriott.
Which room?
521.
Yep. Marriott Hotel Room 521, November the 24th, 2008, 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I understand totally why people take their own lives, because I was in so much pain and I've been in so much pain for so long that it was way scarier. The thought of having to live through the next day was way scarier than dying. But I'd been through it before, so I understood that there was hope for me, but it's that feeling of hopelessness that's terrible. And the next morning, my wife said to me, you know, like, why didn't you call me? And my answer was, because there's nothing that you could say to me, right? You know, it's not that I didn't love her. It's not that I didn't love my kids. It's not that I didn't love my life. It was the pain that I was in. So, you know, I respect so much what you've done, what you did for Rick, and what you have done since Rick passed away in his memory. I think it's of all the things that I've seen, people take something terrible and make it into something halfway good. It would be Kevin Bieksa. I did that on purpose.
You know my name is. I know you know what my name is.
Yeah. You know, so let's introduce Caroline Szwed. Szwed.
Sorry,
Szwed.
Kevin's getting it right. 10 out of 10. Michael, you still got to practice.
You know, I actually have Polish blood in me. Shut up, Kevin. I actually have Polish blood in me. My grandmother was from Poland. And so I should be doing better than I'm doing.
Well, then, dzień dobry.
I agree.
That's hello in Polish.
So, Caroline, pleasure to meet you now on the show. We were talking obviously before, and your struggles with mental health arose, I think, from reading your story when you suffered a very, very, very serious knee injury, which forced you to give up soccer. Correct?
Yes. So basically, quickly, I was supposed to go into camps for the Rio Olympics with Team Canada while I was still at WVU playing collegiate soccer. And I had a really big knee surgery. The cartilage in my knee was gone. So I had bone on bone. I had a pretty big hole in my knee. They took off my kneecap, reimplanted my cartilage. It was just crazy. I was rehabbing it for a year and a half, doing everything I can to get back to my senior year of collegiate soccer. And it was my dream. I had already done a junior World Cup. So it was my dream to go to the Olympics. And a week before my senior year in preseason, I blew out my knee again. And that was my third surgery. My surgeon said, "You're done. You can't play competitive sports anymore. You'll never be able to play." And I remember that feeling of, soccer has been my entire life, every single hour of my day since I was 10 years old. And I think I was 22 when I found that out, that I felt like I lost my identity. And I really did at that point, because I can't speak for all athletes, but there's a tendency with athletes when we play our sport, it becomes our whole world. It's who we think we are. If you ask me who I am, I'd say I'm a soccer player, nothing else. It was the most important thing to me. And, you know, it's still such a big deal in my life, and I lost it. And it was completely out of my control. And I felt like I failed, and I could not deal with that. I fell into a very, very dark depression that I really haven't opened up about yet, but it's a very real feeling when things happen out of your control and fear starts to creep in, and you feel like you've lost your identity and you don't know what's next.
And how long ago was that?
So maybe 5 years ago now. Right.
And if had you ever experienced anything like depression before that? Had you ever thought, you know, like, my mental health isn't great?
Oh, I think that I was wired differently from a very young age. It's funny because now I'm at home with my parents during quarantine and we're watching old home videos, and I'm 5 years old, you know, in Oakville at a gymnastics camp, and I couldn't land my vault properly. And I looked at my poor little face and I was so upset at myself. Like, I was like, I watch it now at 28 years old and I'm like, why am I so hard on myself at every single thing I do? And I remember having very bad anxiety at that age because I couldn't complete a vault. that everyone else was doing. So I think I was always wired a little differently. I've always put in a tremendous amount of pressure on myself. And that's never come from my parents or anyone else on the outside except for me. And I think that I've always struggled with anxiety and pressure. Never depression until my knee surgery, but always anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that about you, not the anxiety, but I knew that you were not a good vaulter. I remember people talking about it like, oh my God, Szwed is just not a great vaulter.
Worst vaulter from Poland ever.
Yeah. So Kevin, what Caroline just mentioned though, is relevant in your life, right? Because you are fairly recently retired. And I have spoken to way more ex-hockey players than I have current hockey players. And so many of them suffer from exactly what Caroline said, the loss of identity, the who are you? You know, I'm a professional hockey player. And that all of a sudden is gone. And now you ask yourself, I'm not saying you, but one asks himself, you know, what am I? And has that been a factor for you?
Well, that's a tough transition in any person's life when all you know is something for the last 30 years and that's your day. Your day is geared towards waking up. And for me, what am I going to do to be a better hockey player today? Well, here's my schedule. I know I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then all of a sudden it changes and you're not a player anymore and you're not on a team and you wake up and it's like, okay, what's my day going to look like? So for me, if I when I retire, and I haven't officially retired, maybe I'll retire officially on the show right now. No, I'm not going to do that. But if when I retire, I think if I sit around and I let myself just kind of relax, then I think I would become very depressed. And I would think about, I'm not a hockey player anymore. I've lost my identity. What do I do? But I've stayed super, super busy, almost too busy the last 2 years, just so I don't have to think about that. So one thing I did to fill the void is I opened a hockey academy for kids and my son's on the team. So I'm at the rink every morning at 6 a.m. on the ice skating for 2.5 hours with a bunch of super enthusiastic 12 to 14-year-olds. Well, that fills the hockey void. Then I'm traveling to Toronto and doing some Sportsnet, being around the guys in the studio. That fills that void of the camaraderie. So I've just tried to stay really, really busy. I'm trying to stay in shape, right? That also fills a little bit of the void. So I think just staying busy and trying to do different things and accomplish different things helps you get through that period.
Yeah, my experience is that it's not the loss of the identity that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is when you don't have a new identity. Like you can go from one thing and say, hey, I've lost that. But if you replace it with something, then that's a different story. Like Caroline, when you lost the identity as a soccer player, I would imagine from what you've said, there was nothing that you could just dive right into and say, okay, I'm done with that. Now I'm this.
Yeah, that surgery, the second one, really pushed me to get my master's degree. And I had a feeling that, if things don't go my way with playing, that I want to stay in sport one way or another. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a TV host or a reporter. But the thing is, what people don't know about me is I was such an introvert. Like people in high school or even first 3 years of university, if they knew me, they would never guess that this is what I'm doing with my career because I was terrified to talk to anyone. So that knee surgery and that entire process that happened of losing my sport pushed me out of my comfort zone and put me into what I believe I'm supposed to be doing at this moment in my life. So and I've learned not to make my job my identity anymore. There's so many learning lessons from what happened, but I definitely figured out that there was way more to me than just soccer.
It's so true. If you see yourself as being something other than something that's permanent and it's taken away, then you're screwed. Like I did OTR off the record for 18 years. And I would say to myself every day, this isn't who I am. Mm-hmm. This is my job. Who I am is a father and who I am is a husband and a son. And I like trained myself to say, like, one day it's going to be taken away. And if I see myself as that, I'm finished. So I was actually really proud of myself that I was able to move on to something else and not lament the loss of what I had. Okay, hold on one sec. Let's lighten this up with Sean
Please.
Cullen. Sean Cullen is comedian, actor, Really funny guy who's been contributing. He was a guest actually on the show on one of our first shows, talked about his own struggle with depression, how he was performing the lead role on the producers of play at the Royal Alex in Toronto. And he was really, really, really sick. And that was the first time he went to get help. So he thought, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to write a little song for Landsberg and Isolation Nation. Roll it, Phil.
Here's the thing. I think you should have more music on the show. So I've just written a little song. See if it works. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. This would be a good time to take up masturbation. Yeah, isolation nation. Huh? What do you think? Chew on it?
I actually wrote a second verse to it, but I think I'll debut it tomorrow. We won't do it right now. That was very funny. He is very funny, and you have a conversation with him, and he can flip back and forth from he's making you laugh to, well, like I've had some really, really rough times, and I think people like that are probably best equipped to do what it is we're doing right now. And Caroline, you said before that you hadn't really talked that much about your depression. Why is that?
I always had this, and it was really until towards the end of last year when I went through a very bad car accident. I had this understanding that it's okay not to be okay, but until you really feel that way, like there's a way you can understand something, but if you don't feel it, it doesn't really resonate. So up until I'd say September of last year, I would always be like, okay, it's okay that, I'm not feeling happy all the time, but I was never okay with talking about it because I was afraid people would be like, you're weak, you're not good enough, you're making excuses. And that was just my own ego and my own fear talking. But now I have come to an understanding that, man, like when you take a second and you talk about it and you're vulnerable, that actually makes you pretty freaking strong, and it's powerful. So
it does. You know what? It's really refreshing for me to see kind of like the next generation of advocates for mental health sharing, right? And you said that you were describing why you didn't share. And the reason why you didn't share seems to me that you believe the stigma, the perception that mental illness is somehow self-inflicted, that depression, for instance, it's like people will go this, I know that mental illness or depression is a real illness. And then they throw in the word but, and everything after the but is the stigma. But come on, Caroline, it's not like you were dying, but come on, it's not like you couldn't do anything else, but I think all of us begin this journey probably believing that. And if you're lucky, you overcome it. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a point to that? Well, think about how far we've come though as a society. And just from the first time I met you, Michael, 15 years ago, and where professional sports was back then, you have a former athlete, 28 years old, and she's openly talking about her depression and anxiety right now. You wouldn't have had that 15 years ago. You have Robert Leonard, when he goes up on stage at the NHL Awards, talk about how he struggles from mental health issues, right? The amount of work that you've done and all the advocates have done has been tremendous. And there's been so much traction gained in the last 10 to 15 years where athletes and people in general are comfortable talking about this. Maybe not right away when they first start suffering, but eventually, right, at their own pace and at their own time. But I know it's way quicker than it used to be 15 years ago. So you have to be happy of where we are and where we're trending.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think we have made strides for sure. But I don't know about you. Let's talk about Caroline. Just me and you, Kevin. She doesn't get a vote in this. But hearing her story, why do you got to show off? Why do you got to show me up here? Szwed. Caroline, listening to her story, though, listening to her, talk about how she was introverted in high school, how she didn't talk to people, and, just the evolution of who she is today is so powerful. for a young woman of her age or younger who goes, well, wait a second here. I've been through a lot of those same struggles. And look, you know what? She's able to talk about them. She doesn't seem ashamed. She doesn't seem embarrassed. She sure as hell doesn't seem weak. I think that her telling that story, is life-changing for some and life-saving for others.
It's like that song, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Right? Is that good singing or no?
It's pretty good.
Like dancing?
It's not good singing. What? Like, I don't know. You guys
I will admit that I'm the worst singer in the world.
No, I'm worse.
I've got you all beat. I've got you. I'm so tone deaf. It is so bad.
Okay.
I don't know. My dog runs out of the room when I start play singing.
Yesterday, I sang along with Sean on the song, right? So I had him in my ear, and I sang, and we meshed them together like a duet. And it was horrible. I was just like, it was hard to believe that I could be that off, because when you sing and you're not good, you don't hear it the same way everybody else hears it, right? It's like there's this filter that enhances it before it gets into your brain. And you go, I'm not a great singer, but I'm not bad. Well, I'm bad.
Well, I think I don't sound that terrible, but then I look at the reaction of the people in the room when I'm singing, and then I know I'm terrible. And then if you ever record yourself singing,
oh God,
the proof you need that you're terrible.
Well, one second, I'm going to ask Case. There's Phil wouldn't have the from yesterday, right? Me and Sean. I wish I had it to play because it was horrifying.
A lot of rhymes though.
Yeah, it was. But I wrote a second verse, which you'll have to tune in for tomorrow. And this was awesome. Like just really refreshing for me. To hear just open, candid talk. And, I think one of the things that you did with Rick and, losing Rick was that you talked about it. You didn't bury it. You didn't try to protect your friend's memory by not talking about it, because that's an antiquated way to look at it. If you look at it like he had something to be ashamed of, then, it explains a lot, but he didn't, and you didn't. And as a result, I think that's what made a huge difference from you after, this awful tragedy.
Well, the silence was part of the problem, right? And not that he was completely silent. He slowly started to open up to more and more people. And he was in and out of the NHL substance and abuse and behavioral program twice. And he was trying to get help. And he was also, while he was doing this, he was going out and talking to schools and sharing his experience. So he was trying to do the right things. And at the end of the day, he lost the battle, but he wanted his story out there, and he wanted to help other kids suffering from the same thing.
Okay, hold on, guys. I mean, I'm kind of just flying by the seat of our pants here. And I want to play the other thing that Sean Cullen did for us today. He told me that he was going to give some fitness tips, and he did that. So I'm going to say, or he said he would do it.
Let me take notes. I'm going to grab a piece of paper and take some notes.
There's no doubt that staying fit is a tough thing to do, obviously, at this time. Unless you're lucky enough to have equipment at home. Like we have a Peloton, which is like the most amazing piece of equipment that I've ever seen in my life. So Sean Cullen, thanks for rejoining us. Hey, what's up, Sean?
Yes, hi, Michael. It's difficult to work out, to keep in shape in these times. What I used to do to work out was just wrestle my mother. And she is a professional wrestler under the name AAA, AAA, the Ancient Angry Avocado. She's small but violent, and so she really kept me on my toes. But since we're quarantining, I can't work with her right now.
Man, that is really tough. This must be hard on your mom. What's she doing?
Yes, she's really into fight sports, and she's wanted to go down to Florida to work with WWE, but she can't get through the border. And she was also very excited about Fight Island because she is an MMA artist as well. And she's only 5 feet tall, but not a lot of reach. But once she gets you on the floor, she's a nightmare. She's been called the grizzled python. And believe me, you don't want to get pinned.
Okay, we started this by me asking, how are you working out and staying in shape, Sean? Your mom's not available, so what are you doing?
So what I've done is I take off all my clothes and I smear olive oil all over myself, and then I get in the tub, and then I try and struggle out of the tub without using my arms or hands. So it's a great core workout, and it's incredibly strenuous, and I find myself after a while just giving up and lying there and licking the olive oil off myself. So take care, Michael, and I hope you're keeping fit. I know you're a fit man, and sensually fit, like incredibly fit, in a way disturbingly fit. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wipe your bum.
I told you, he's very funny, and it's kind of just what you need to do this. Like, I always dreamed of doing a show like this, to be honest with you, and never thought that it was the right time. And I never thought that you could actually push the boundaries. And that's why social media is so good. It's not like I got to answer to TSN. It's not like there's the CRTC. We can do anything we want to do. And I think that's when you get your message across the best. And I don't want to end this show right now. I don't. I've had too much.
Can I comment on Phil there? Is anybody else picturing Phil in the bathtub trying to get
Sean.
out?
That's Sean. Phil is the guy in your ear. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Sean. Can you picture? That's what I was doing the whole time. Now it's disturbing.
I was picturing the grizzled python.
That would make me crack up.
Yeah,
his mom must be so tough.
So tough. He's a lovely guy, and he's a funny guy, and we appreciate his contribution, and really appreciate you guys doing the show. What's the time? God, you have no time limit. Like, if you do normal television, it's not like you can go 15 minutes past when you're supposed to go. But you know what? Screw it. I can go as long as I want. Okay.
You're the boss.
Caroline, thank you so much. What a pleasure to meet you. And I think that this is probably going to go on for a while. So I think that I'm going to give you an invitation to return right now. And I think it would be great because, like I said, your message, not everyone's message resonates with everybody else, right? And you speaking about how you were in high school and your experiences since then and suffering from severe depression, I think is hugely powerful. And thank you for sharing that.
Oh no, Michael, thank you for having me on here. I think it's so great. And, just like what Kevin said, the work that you do is so, so important. So I know it's so hard for people to accept love, but sometimes you got to do that. And it's my job right now to give it to you because you do deserve it. But thank you. It was great. It's great to hear Kevin say my last name and absolutely nail it. Not everyone can do that. So it was so much fun hanging out with you guys here. So I'm down anytime. We've got lots of time.
Bieksa, thank you.
I'm too busy. I'm too busy.
Well, you actually have found a way to be busy for sure. I'm kind of shocked by it, like the number of things that you've done.
I got a TikTok in 15 minutes, so you're lucky this is ending right now.
Kevin, I'm a big fan of your daughter's TikTok, so you guys got to keep them going.
Well, we got a little bit of pressure now. We're building some momentum now.
Okay, show us your dogs. Let's see the dogs.
Tashi, come here.
Come here, Riggs. Riggs, come here. Riggs, come here, bud. Come here. He's looking at me like, what? My dog is not a lap dog. He's big, right?
Bash, don't move. Bash, don't move.
Aw, okay.
I bribed Cashy with cookies.
Okay, I can't tell. Can you see Wrigley?
Oh yeah, I can see him. Yeah.
Hey, Riggs.
They're so cute.
What's going on? How are you, Riggs? Who's a good boy? Like, why do those words come out of your mouth all the time? Who's a good boy?
Oh, I always talk to my dog.
I know, but it's like you walk around all the time. If you could speak, you'd probably go, for Christ's sake, we know I'm a good boy.
I know. Think about what our dogs think about us. I think about that all the time. It's like, this chick's crazy.
This guy just wants food. Give me food now.
That's like Cashy too, and probably teeth. But
thanks, guys. Were you? I may as well push the boundaries here, Caroline. Were you ever on meds for depression?
You know what? Even after surgery, with the amount of pain that I was in, I got off medication in like 2 days. It's not something that I've liked ever. So I really try other ways to relax myself. And something that I've really found that works for me is meditation. And I never thought in a million years I would be one who would find relief in that. But the more I've practiced it in the morning or every day of just calming my brain down for like 10 to 20 minutes, it actually sets me up in the morning for quite a good outcome.
I would love to hear, I'd love for you to teach folks how to do meditation, because there's things like that. Like I had to go to medication, and this is kind of the way I look at it. I don't like medication, but I hate the illness.
No, I get it.
You got to learn to love the thing you hate the least.
Mm-hmm.
One second. I got to replay that. Was that right? You got to learn to love the thing that you hate the least. And for me, I hate the medication less than I hate depression.
No, and I get, there's been so many times where I've been like, maybe this is something I have to do. I didn't end up going down that path, but I totally respect and understand when people, I have many friends and family members who are on medication. And if that works for them, you have to do whatever works for you to help you get through the day and start to feel good. Like you have to, bottom line, your health and your well-being is the most important thing.
So thank you. Let's talk soon. What a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, this was fun. And Kevin, thanks, man. I always kind of thought the world of you, and I think that sometimes the worst things that happen in life can bring out the best in people. And I think that the loss of your friend Rick has really brought out the best in you, and I'm proud of you for that, man. Good to talk to you.
I appreciate it. Anytime you call or email me, I'm there for you. You know that,
Great.
Right?
Thanks, man. Unless you're out running your half marathon, which there's no proof of.
Yeah. Can we see the proof, Kevin?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in proving to you guys. It's for me. That's for me. Okay.
Okay. Just listen to this. You ready? Caroline Szwed.
That's great.
Okay, let's do it together. Let's do it together.
It's not even that hard. It's not even that hard. It's not even as hard.
Why do you got to be like that?
Say Bieksa.
Bieksa. We'll say it one more time all together, and then we'll wrap up the show. I'll go 3, 2, 1, and we're all going to go Szwed. Okay? 3, 2, 1.
Szwed.
Szwed.
Oh, you're way late, Bieksa. Seriously. I mean, you're so offside there, man. That's Jesus.
What's the rush?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank you, guys.
Stay healthy.
All good?
That's it.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.